Wow, I just noticed your voice is so deep. Praise you. Wow. Anyway, I was so impressed by the prayer. Hi everyone, my name is Brian. I have the privilege of leading this congregation. If it's your first time or returning for a service, I welcome you. I always look forward to worshiping together on Sundays. So today, I want to share from Numbers chapter 13 and 14 as we continue our Gospel Project series. Before I get there, I do want to just give a shout out to all the wonderful Sunday school teachers and volunteers. I know some of you get to take a break this summer, but I know many of you are still serving faithfully, so I do want to recognize you. That was just something in my heart today. I just wanted to say thank you for those of you who are serving behind the scenes. Oftentimes we don't recognize you enough, but thank you so much, and thank you so much for the worship team. I know they put in a lot of work to practice and throughout the week to prepare for this service. So I thank everyone who's making this worship service possible. So with that, as I was thinking about today's message, I looked up on Google, like how many times we make decisions per day. And it says on average, people make approximately 35,000 decisions each day, ranging from what to eat, what to wear, to more complex and significant decisions related to your career, your future, marriage, health, and even faith. And even today, all of us are here because you and we decided to come to church, to worship together with the family of God instead of doing other things, sleeping in or doing other things. Even now, you're making a decision whether to listen or to tune out, to look at your phone or put it away. And throughout this message, you will feel the tugging in your heart as the Lord speaks to you. And you and I will have to make a decision whether to listen and respond to God or just dismiss God's voice. Today, we'll look at a pivotal moment for the Israelite community in Numbers chapters 13 and 14, where God's people are faced with a significant decision that led to a terrible and devastating consequence, wandering around the desert for the next 40 years. And they all end up dying there. This was the very moment, I believe, that the Israelites will later look back and regret for the rest of their lives. A truly tragic moment and a missed opportunity where they literally stood at the edge of the promised land. But they had to turn back to the wilderness. And by doing so, they forfeit God's promise. They were so close. They're right there. They literally saw with their own eyes the promised land that they've been hearing about, that God promised to them. Maybe they smelled it. And they were dreaming to cross over to the land. It was literally in their arm's reach. But they could not enter due to their unbelief. This was truly a defining moment when the older generation of the Israelites chose to disobey God. Again, they chose to disobey God and became wanderers in the wilderness. And I want us to take a moment to think about what I just shared. Because oftentimes when we read through the Bible, we just turn to the next page and move on. Okay, nice story. But we cannot just simply turn the page and move on to the next story without considering how this very narrative is not just an old story of the Israelites, but it is actually your story and my story today. Although our context may look very different, because none of us, from I know, we're not in a desert. And your life and my life will look very different. But I believe all of us are living through what I call a pivotal moment as a nation. Think about what's happening in this nation. As a church, all the churches are going through this pivotal moment right now. What about your family? And as individuals, all of us here, we're living through a pivotal moment right now. Because what you decide to do today or not do today will determine your future and the future of our families, church, and the nation. And if you were me, you will worry about making the wrong decision, right? What if I'm at this pivotal moment, I make the wrong decision? And I admit that decision making is one of the hardest things and most challenging things about being the senior pastor. Sometimes I wish I could go back to the days when I didn't have to make decisions. But you know what? When I wasn't making the decisions, I used to complain about the decisions. That thinking that I could do better, that I would do something else. But for that matter, the past few years serving as the senior pastor of this congregation have been very humbling, to say the least. Decisions are hard. I still struggle with so much fear of the unknown. I want to know everything before I make a decision. Don't you say that too? Weigh all the options before we make any kind of decision. But what if today God says to you, without seeing every evidence, without knowing all the facts, will you just trust me and make a decision and follow me wholeheartedly? What would you say? That's why I said, what we're about to read today is also your story and my story. Your struggle and my struggle, not just the Israelites. Because we go through this every day, facing fear. So let's dive into passage today and see how the Israelites go through this pivotal moment. So we're going to pick up from Numbers chapter 13, verses 26 through 33. They are currently at a place called Kadesh Barnea, and that's at the edge, borderline of the Promised Land. And keep in mind, before I read the passage here, that God had already promised many, many years ago, and He reminded them again and again that this land is already theirs, that God had given them this land. And before we read here, keep in mind again that spies were sent in and they came back with these reports they're about to read. So we'll pick up from verse 26. So spies came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. Amalekites live in the Negev, the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb speaks up. Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, "We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We can't attack these people. They are stronger than we are." And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilims there, the descendants of Anak come from Nephilim. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. Many of you might know this account because once again, this was a pivotal moment of the Israelites. So I'll just take you through the passage. And if you are following the outline, you can just follow. Why was it a pivotal moment? Because this was a moment where they could choose from faith or fear. Again, it was a deliberate choice. And let's look at some of the choices that people made. Moses made a choice. It says in verse 1, chapter 13 of Numbers, the Lord said to Moses, send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each ancestral tribe, send one of its leaders. If we just read Numbers chapter 13, verse 1, it seems like it was God who commanded Moses to send out the spies. So I asked this question to myself as I was diving in and studying the scripture. Why did God command Moses to send out the spies? If he knew that they would come back all scared and fearful, what was God doing here? But as I was looking into the passage, I found out that originally this was not God's intention. It was actually a request from the people of God. But I believe God allowed it because Moses agreed to it. And let me read a passage from Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 19 to 23 to see how it came about. Deuteronomy, Moses recalls this moment, and this is what he says. Verse 19, then as the Lord our God commanded us, we set out from Horeb and went toward the hill country of the Amorites through all the vast and dreadful wilderness that you have seen. And so we reached Kadesh Barnea. Then I said to you, you have reached the hill country of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is giving us. See, the Lord your God has given you the land. Go up and take possession of it as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, told you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Then all of you came to me and said, let us send men ahead to spy out the land for us and bring back report about the route we are to take and the towns we will come to. And the idea seemed good to me, says Moses. So I selected 12 of you, one man from each tribe. Again, we find out as we look into other passages, the intention, this was not originally God's intention to send in spies because God already told them that I gave you this land. You go and take possession of the land. But we saw the people wanted to go and send spies. And Moses gave in to their request. Moses made a decision to listen to the people rather than acting upon God's word to take possession of the land. Perhaps he gave into fear of men, wanted to make proper plans to know how to go about conquering the land. Again, to our human minds, nothing is wrong to go and learn about where they're about to go. But when we look at what came out as a result, how fearful they became as a result of that, that was probably not the best idea. Some scholars point out the wording of God's command in Numbers chapter 13, verse 2. And they actually recommend us to read it this way. When God says, send spies, send some men, we should actually read it as this. Send for yourself some men. Send for yourself some men. It wasn't that God needed some confirmation to make sure that his plans are good. God was not trying to make sure that this promised land was as what he thought it would be. He did not need that. It was for Moses and the people. And in his grace, God allowed them to proceed with Moses, what he had agreed to with the people, giving his servant more confidence to lead and providing his people with an opportunity to witness what God had in store for them. Not only Moses, but when the spies went out, they had a decision to make. After they went about the land and they saw how this land was just like what God told them. They came back and they decided to give a report. 10 people gave negative reports, and 2 people, as we know them, as Joshua and Caleb, they gave encouraging reports. And having observed all these obstacles firsthand, the majority opinion of the spies was not to invade Canaan, not to go into the promised land. And on a side note, I do want to make a point. Following the majority opinion is not always the best way. It's not. Please, seek the Lord and ask the Lord what He thinks. Even if all of us have certain idea and we agree to it, what if God says no? Who are you going to follow? Who are we going to follow? Because that's exactly what happened here. The whole Israelites followed with the majority decision, while Caleb and Joshua kept on challenging the people. Let's trust the Lord. Let's believe in the Lord and His promise. And over the years, how many times have you seen many churches, including ours, make decisions based on more upon majority opinion rather than what God had clearly expressed to His church and to the people? Listen to what one commentator said. Seeing the average maturity of most Christians, is it any surprise that oftentimes the majority chooses to act contrary to the Lord's desire? Again, is it any surprise that oftentimes the majority chooses to act contrary to the Lord's desire? While the perspective of every member should be considered, the leaders, pastors and elders, ministry leaders, we should follow God's direction, regardless of popular opinion. So the 10 of them came back and they concluded that the promised land was just as what God had promised. If you read the report, they admitted that this was a land flowing with milk and honey. And this has so much potential, just like what God said. However, they kept on emphasizing the enemy was just too powerful. And that any attempt to attack would most certainly fail. In many ways, the 10 discouraging reports were not necessarily wrong. They had the facts right. However, they forgot about God. They were so focused on what they saw. They were so focused on their reports and the facts they gathered, they lost sight of God. How can they forget about God who delivered them from the Egyptians? What about the incident, the miracles, the Red Sea, and how God provided for them again and again and again? How God delivered them from their enemies who were bigger than them. They lost sight of God and just focused on the facts. They saw exactly the same thing. Caleb and Joshua, if you consider that one group, and the 10 other spies, both groups, they saw the same exact things. But Caleb and Joshua came home stronger in faith when the other 10 spies had a sense of doom. What about us today? When you consider God's promise, when you look into what God has in store for you, are you filled with more fear or faith in the Lord? And the decision was made by the whole community. No one forced him to make this decision. The whole community decided to reject Joshua and Caleb's plea. And they gave in to fear and doubt, and they chose not to obey God. It says in verse 1 through 4 in chapter 14, that night, after they heard the report, that same night, all the members of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. So they made a decision for themselves to turn against what God had told them. But what takes place after is just so incredible. Because you see, I call them the four, Aaron and Moses and Joshua and Caleb. In the following verses, you see them not just getting upset at the people, but you know what they do? They come in front of the whole congregation, if you want to call it Israelites, and they fall face down, facing them. Moses and Aaron, verse 5 says, they fell face down in the presence of the whole assembly. And Joshua and Caleb, they stood up and said in verse 7, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. And if the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. After all this, they're trying to now kill them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. So God steps in. And you know what God says? How long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me in spite of all the signs I perform among them? Let's just let those words sink into our hearts and our minds today. How long? How long does God have to put up with me? All the times that I question God, His goodness, whether God is really for me. God was about to wipe them out. Rightly so. I would do the same thing. But you know what? Moses steps in. And he intercedes for the people that he was called to serve. He says, the Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love and forgiving sin and rebellion. Yet He does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sins of the parents of the third and fourth generation. In accordance with your great love, forgive the sin of these people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they left Egypt until now. Moses is just crying out on behalf of the people who are ready to stone him, to kill him. What a leader he was. As you read down in chapter 14, I titled this section, A Missed Opportunity and the Consequence of Their Decisions. If you read down verses 20 to 23, they forfeit God's promise. I promised you this land, but you know what? Because of the sin, because of your disobedience, none of them, God says, verse 23, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. Not only that, as you read down, their consequence of their sin goes to even their children. For 40 years in the wilderness, it says your children will have to suffer for the sins that you committed in the wilderness with you. Verse 33, your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness, until the last of your bodies lie in the wilderness for 40 years. 1 year for each of the 40 days you explore the land. You will suffer for your sins and know what it's like to have me against you. Something like this really challenges me as a father. The decisions that I make today not only affects my life, but it actually has lasting impact on my children. Maybe some of you might say, well, I don't have my kids, so I can do whatever I want. That's not true. So many people are dependent upon your decision. They look to you for guidance. Many of you serve in kids' ministry. Many of you have people looking to you to know what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a man of God, a son of God, a daughter of God, a mother and a dad, a leader. Church, the choices that we make really matter. The more I grow in the Lord, the older I get, I realize that I don't get to exercise my freedom as much. And sometimes I struggle because I don't want to accept that. I want to be who I am. Let me do what I want to do. I want to eat whatever I want to eat, do whatever I want to do, go wherever I want to go, make decisions based upon my own opinion, and say whatever I want to say. But you know what? I can't. I can't. Because my words will not only have an impact in my life, my decisions will not only have impact in my life, will impact my wife, my kids, and the church. During our missions training, I always tell our missions team that they are missionaries. It doesn't matter whether they're going mission for a day, or a year, or 2 or 40 years. I tell them, you are a missionary, whether you like it or not. And when you go to these locations, you are representing God's kingdom. How you behave, what you say, the values that you portray, those matter because we are representing God. And that applies to our lives here on earth. When you go to work, when you drive. Do you know one of the reasons why we don't put our church name on our vans is because we know that people will take our church vans and do some not so good stuff on the road. And it's funny because our office manager recently put a sticker there, "It's okay with Jesus." And I told him, "Why'd you do that?" You know why he put that? Because all these people who use a van, they don't treat it nicely. They just drive like a rental vehicle. So it was like, maybe when I put a sticker there with Jesus' name, maybe they will drive slower. Maybe they will show some character. All that to say, brothers and sisters, I'm not here to nag you. But please hear me out. We are living through a pivotal time as people of God. Before it's too late, God is calling all of us to make a decision. Are you going to serve the Lord or not? Are you going to say that you're going to belong to God? Then live like you belong to God. No longer putting your foot, one foot in the world, and other foot in heaven, whatever that means. We use that analogy, but they cannot happen. We cannot coexist in two different worlds. You are either a child of God or not a child of God. You cannot be of the world and do everything you want to do in the world and call yourself a disciple of Jesus Christ. And I told you many times, you may just say, I'm just a Christian. A Christian, the moment you say yes to God, you are a disciple of Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters, this world is in need of people like you and I to come to our senses and make a decision whether we're going to really live for the Lord or not. Just like the Israelites are standing right at the edge of the promised land, perhaps today, many of you are at the edge and you have a decision to make. Are you going to go in with faith, or are you just going to turn around and choose to become wanderers for the rest of your life? And what kind of consequences will that bring in your life, in your family? And perhaps this opportunity may not come again to many of us. Too many people say, you know what, after I enjoy my life, then I will love the Lord. Maybe once my kids grow up and go off to college, then I'll serve the Lord. Who guarantees you that time? What if you don't have that opportunity anymore? What if today's the day that God is calling you to say, enter the promised land that I'm giving you? You know what the Israelites did? At the end of chapter 14, they finally came to their senses and said, you know what? We will go up. Let us go up. We can go right now. But Moses said this to them: do not go up. The Lord is not with you, and you will certainly be defeated. But they did not listen. They went up to the land, to conquer the land on their own term, in their own way. But it was too late. Too late. I'm going to have the worship team come up. As I was meditating upon Numbers 13 and 14 this week, I really felt the Lord tugging in my heart. Brian, you are in a pivotal moment. Are you really going to trust me or not? Are you going to continue to measure and look for the facts? Or are you going to trust me and go all in? Perhaps God is asking you the same question. Many of us, we consider ourselves a church attendee, church goer, whatever you call yourself. Perhaps today is the day that you make a decision for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for the community, whether you will serve the Lord or not. Just like Joshua did in front of the Israelites, choose this day whether you will serve the Lord or the idols of this world. Brothers and sisters, I encourage you to choose to serve the Lord. Not because He needs your service. Not because we need you to attend church and give. No. You're missing the point if that's your concern. Bible makes it very clear again and again, it's for your own good. These words that I give you today, it may seem like a heavy burden, a list of law for you, but these are for your own good. For your own good, for my own good. The question is, do you really believe it that way? Can we stand? In closing, I ask the worship team to prepare the song, The Same God. The Same God. One of the lessons that we can learn from this passage is this, that God is a faithful God throughout the ages, but we are a forgetful people. And as we sing this song, I want us to remember who God is. I wish the spies, as they were touring the land, checking out the land, I wish at every moment, every turn, they remembered who God was. As they saw the giants, I wished they remembered that our God is bigger than those giants. That to God, they are like grasshoppers. A well-known biblical scholar named C.H. Mackintosh said these words, 10,000 mercies are forgotten in the presence of a single trifling moment. When we face troubles in our lives, we just forget everything. We panic, but let this song be a reminder to you that a God who rescued the Israelites from the Egypt, who rescued them from the hands of the Egyptian army by parting the Red Sea, the God who sent Jesus, the God who healed many sick people, the God who delivered many possessed people. All these stories that we read about the Bible, God is the same today. And He will continue to be that God in our lives. Let's recall who our God is. So let's sing this song together.